Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's time for the next live. My name is Zeno Lancaster. I'm the owner of Lancaster Law Firm here in Asheville, North Carolina, with offices in Hendersonville and Canton, North Carolina. We've got a huge staff. Would love to work with anybody if you need a new option at closing attorney. We have 4 attorneys on staff, lots of paralegals, the title abstractor on staff. We search in-house so we can control that speed. I'm wanting to talk about marital interest and being married in real estate, how it affects real estate. We get these questions weekly. Let me adjust this real quick. We get these questions weekly, and I think that, I don't know if they're being taught a little wrong, or if it's just confusing, or if there's a lot of misinformation floating around out there. So I'm hoping I can set the record straight and help with some of that. So that you guys can better prepare your clients, better figure out how they are wanting to buy or sell, and be mindful that you do have options and that you should have an attorney you can ask about those options if it's a big deal and you're running into roadblocks there, okay? So why is this important? When you, in real estate in North Carolina, it's different state to state. In North Carolina, you have ownership interest in real property, and you can have marital interest. Marital interest has to do with when the other spouse passes away. It's an elective right to the property. And I won't get into that too much because it'll muddy the waters, but in essence, it's, I don't want to do what's left in the will. I want to take an elective share. I want to exercise my marital rights in the property. That can encumber property that your spouse might have deeded away 10 years ago. Okay, potentially can encumber that property. It would give them a life estate in that property, and it could cause owners that have been in there for 10 years to have to move out and let them live there. I know you've never heard of that before because it's extremely rare, but it's obviously, you're probably like, wow, is that real? It's real. That's why we care. That's why we have the spouses sign all the time, okay? That's what we're trying to prevent, and that's making a very long story and a much more complex process short. But that's what we're doing there. However, there are certain times when spouses do not have to sign, and I think you guys need to know the difference because I've seen it. You're going to hear differently from lenders, other realtors, maybe even other attorneys. But it's pretty black and white on the statute, guys. I'm going to pull up the statute real quick so I can just give you guys a reference in case you need it. So, two to buy one, or 1 to buy, 2 to sell, right? That's what you guys hear in general. Okay. So, in general, that's correct. In general, you're going to have spouses join on a deed. If I go and buy a piece of real estate and 3 years later I get married and I want to sell it the next day, my spouse has to sign that deed. That is to sign away not her ownership interest, because I own the property myself. I'm the only one on the deed, okay? I'm the only owner. And what she's signing away is, hey, 100 years from now, I hope, when Zeno dies, I'm not going to claim an elective share in this property, okay? She's signing away her marital interest, not her ownership interest, because she doesn't have any. That's why she's joining. If her and I both buy the property, then she has to sign the deed when we sell, because she's signing away not only her marital interest, but her ownership interest, because she's an owner. So if you have 2 people that own the property, they always have to sign the deed. They own it. That's what they're conveying in the deed. If you have only one person that owns it, the spouse needs to sign because they have that marital interest, and we're trying to wash that away. Signing the deed does that, okay? So that down the road, the future owners don't have any problems with this, potentially. If it's not done, title insurance is not going to insure it, and your attorney might be gone. You might be, I see it all the time. So you want to make sure that's done correctly. Good attorney's going to make sure that's done correctly. So what else? But when do they not have to sign? So on refinances, it's the same thing. If I own a house or a piece of property, piece of real estate, and I want to refinance it. So if I want to put a new loan on that property, a new deed of trust, Same thing. Marital interest is superior to a second lien or a third lien or whatever mortgage on the property. So my spouse needs to sign that deed of trust to, again, not really waive, not release their marital interest in the property, but subordinate it to that lien. In other words, if the lien gets foreclosed, I'm not going to claim this marital interest in this property. There are exceptions to this, and this is important. This is when it really comes up. So this is the part you want to get your pen out and your paper out. If you're wanting to buy a property, and it's a purchase money deed of trust, which means you're getting a loan to purchase the property. 100% of the loan proceeds are going towards buying that property. Purchase money deeds of trust are superior to marital interest. So if I go and buy a piece, I'm married, I go and buy a piece of property, and I get a purchase money deed of trust from wherever bank. Wherever bank gives me $100,000, purchase price is $102,000. I'm coming up with $2,000. 100% of the loan proceeds are being used to buy the home. That's most loans, guys. Not all of them, but most of them. Then that's a purchase money deed of trust. My spouse does not need, if she's not going to be on the deed, she does not need to sign anything at that closing under the real estate law. Now, you're going to have lenders say, but what about marital interest? They're wrong, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. One of us is wrong. If it's closing with me, I can tell you that we have a pretty good success rate on this. And sometimes we have spouses in town buying property. Sometimes it's not to live in. Sometimes it is, whatever. They don't want the spouse involved. They come from other states where that's not required. I can help them make that happen. I explain it to the lenders, send them the statute, and we talk about it. And most of the time it works. Some lenders shrug their shoulders and say, I don't care what the law is, we're requiring it. Well, you chose that lender, guys. No offense to any lenders out there. And your wife's going to have to fly to North Carolina, or we're going to have to send her documents or whatever. That's rare, though. Most of them get it. Most of them understand. Most of them, thankfully, will take a lawyer's certification that everything will be okay. And that spouse does not need to sign at that purchase money purchase, okay? This can happen. Sometimes a few different ways this comes up at closing. One, hey, I'm just buying this property. My wife's not on the contract. My wife's not on the deed. Why does she need to be at closing? And I've not told her to come to closing, and she's in California, and I'm peeved off. My wife's on this deed of trust the lender has sent over, and I'm peeved off. Zeno, why is this happening? Well, that can happen, and apparently no one had that conversation before it got to our closing table. And usually we can go back to the lender and say, hey, he wasn't expecting his wife to be here. Apparently y'all didn't have that conversation. She's not on the deed, she's not on the contract, so we didn't know about her either. Can you take her off under this statute? Most of the time they'll do that, but sometimes they do throw it on there. At some point they've had a conversation with you because they got her name, right? But we weren't privy to that. That can happen, and one way to avoid it is if you have just one spouse buying, go ahead and prepare for that. Lender, only one spouse is buying. They told us they don't want the other spouse to have to be involved. They're busy, whatever. This is just their investment property, whatever. We can make that happen, but it's always good to reach out to the lender and make sure they're on board with that early. And if not, you can get me involved early. And I'm happy to talk to them and explain why they can get that taken off. Another situation where it comes up is we have a refinance and the spouse doesn't come. And we have to have that spouse there at refinances, remember, because they have to sign that marital interest. Well, Bob bought the property 10 years ago himself. It's always been his property. He uses it for whatever, okay? Why on earth should the spouse have to come? They've only been married a week. Sometimes we'll show up and the lender will have drafted the deed of trust. Bob Smith married on a refinance. We actually have to get them in there to sign that one. So it is complicated, but keep this in mind. And I guess realtors, you're not so much worried about the refinances, but if your clients ask, it's something good to pass along that, yeah, you can do this without your spouse on the purchase, but if you sell or refinance, you're going to need to get them involved. There are exceptions to quite a few things in life. One of these exceptions, it's not an exception, but it's just a way to get around it and prepare for it. It's called a free trader agreement. This free trader agreement essentially says, hey, on this property or all properties they buy from here on out. My spouse owns it themselves. I waive marital interest in any property they buy or currently own or buy hereafter, or they can specify one property. It's really up to the clients. We can specify all that in the agreement. They sign away that marital interest there. We get that recorded. And then that spouse is free to operate without their spouse having to join in on all the transactions they want, depending on what the free trader agreement says, because the other spouse has already waived that marital interest in those properties. Either way, they have to waive that marital interest, unless it's a purchase money, mortgage purchase. Obviously, cash deals, if you're buying as a cash buyer, we can put Bob's name on the deed by itself. That wife doesn't need to sign. It's usually lending that brings this up on a purchase. Free trader agreement, Jen, is what it's called. It's a few pages long, depending on how many properties they own, and how many they want to subject to this. Some spouses want, some couples want to say, for 1 Brown Street, I need Bob to be able to do with it as he pleases. I don't want to get involved. He's dealing with it. I'm a busy woman, busy man, whatever. And they can go ahead and sign that, and we put it on the record, and they're good. Bob's good to do with it as he pleases on that without having to bother his spouse, or on all their properties. Do people do this in a prenup? I'm sure they do sometimes. I don't see it very often. Honestly, divorce attorneys and divorce law. Well, okay, let's talk about that for a minute. So marital property in family law is a whole other thing. So if Bob and Sally are married, and Bob's listened to Zeno this whole time, and he's had a free trader agreement signed and everything, and then Sally shows up in family court and says, well, I've paid the mortgage, I've done repairs on the house, I should get a piece of this in our divorce. A family law judge may or may not agree on that, but that has to do with marital law and marital property law, which I know is very confusing because it's got the word property in it and the word marital in it, and I'm talking about marital interest in real estate. But they probably do put those in prenups. I will say divorce attorneys kind of botch real estate issues a lot. Sometimes Bob will get the house in the divorce, and they're both on the deed, and Bob never has the wife sign a deed to Bob. So he's just like, poof, we agree that Bob gets the house in the divorce, and there's no deed signed. Then Bob doesn't own the house by himself. This comes up at least a few times every year, where we have to go find some estranged ex-spouse and ask them if they're okay signing for someone they sometimes don't like very much. All because their divorce attorney didn't get it done at the divorce. No offense to divorce attorneys out there, but I do see it sometimes. I'm sure most of them do it correctly. But yeah, some people probably do put it in a prenup. I think that's a good idea. But here's the thing. It has to be recorded at the Register of Deeds. So some people don't maybe not want to put their whole prenup on public record for everyone to see. So sometimes you could put in a prenup, we will sign a free trader agreement for this. But like I say, divorce decrees and settlement agreements all the time say, well, I will deed it over, and then they just never do it. So you want to make sure that regardless, you have, if you have your divorce attorney saying one thing, go ahead and copy in your real estate attorney, get everyone on the same page, and we can make sure all this is tied up neatly. Because you do need that recorded for it to be usable in real estate, a prenup. I'm sorry, a free trader agreement. So guys, I think that's about it. Put any questions or comments you have, please, in the post, in the comments. If anything you think I'm wrong about, let me know. I'm going to post in the comments the statute so that you can start sending this around, because I think education is important, so that I don't have to send it around all the time. It's literally titled, no spouse needed or something like that. I'll copy it. I can't get my computer to bring it up right now, but I'll put it in the comments. My name is Zeno Lancaster. Again, I'm with Lancaster Law Firm. Thanks for watching. Please invite anyone you can to the group that you think would benefit from these lives or anything else, all the other great wisdom you guys share in the group, recommendations, that kind of thing. Again, guys, if you have questions about this on current closings or future closings, please feel free to reach out. Please feel free to post in the group. We can talk about it again. Share this live. And I go live every Tuesday around 9 a.m. Hope you'll tune in next time. Please connect with us, LancasterLawFirm.com, at Flying Casual on Instagram, at Lancaster Law Firm on Instagram, and we're all over Facebook and the interwebs and all that. If you've enjoyed this, I hope you'll leave us a review on Google. We're trying to work on that too. If we've helped you with in any way with these lives or in any other way, please feel free to leave us Lancaster Law Firm on Google review. Thanks, guys. Have a great week. Stay dry. See ya.